Okay, so what would I do if I had to fix an inconsistent sales pipeline? In this video, I want to run through how I would, if a client came to us and wanted help with breaking down their sales pipeline and trying to work out why it's so inconsistent. In this video, I'm going to cover what I would go through. Why this is important is that you can't build a business without predictability, and having a sales pipeline that you can foresee is going to help just sleep better at night, but it's going to reduce your overall stress because you can see what's coming next quarter and the next quarter and the next quarter, and you have some form of predictability, and therefore you can plan and strategize and be an efficient and effective business owner at that point. An inconsistent sales pipeline creates a lot of stress, it creates a lot of anxiety, it's hard to hire new staff, it's hard to invest into the business because you don't know what's coming. So the first thing I'll do to diagnose and fix an inconsistent sales pipeline is I would make sure that you have a documented sales process. So I don't need you to be reinventing the sales process with every new client. So from the initial call to the follow-up email, to that second call, to the site visit, to the concept proposal fee, to the next meeting after that, then to the prelim agreement, etc. I would have a pipeline, a sales pipeline that's actionable, that's documented, and that's also scalable as well. So you might be thinking, well, what's the importance of having a documented sales process? Is we need to be able to identify, once we have all the leads coming in, we need a very systemized and scalable way of closing these clients. And then also having it documented, we can identify in which parts of the process, in that sales qualifying process, are people dropping off. It could be after step 1, 2, 3, they're really good, but after step 4, 5, 6, that's where the decline is. So then in step 4, 5, 6, that's where we can refine and we can get clear on what we need to do. Right? But if we're constantly changing things, we don't know if it's the beginning, if it's the end, you've got no gauge. So you need to plant your feet somewhere, you need to document a sales process, and you need to make sure that it's repeatable, it's scalable, and that you're following that sales process. The next thing you would need to fix your inconsistent sales pipeline would be getting to know your numbers. And what I mean by that is your path to profit. You'd need to know how many leads you need in order to generate X amount of sales qualified conversations, how many sales qualified conversations you need to generate X amount of concept plans, how many concept plans you need to generate X amount of prelims, how many prelims you need to create X amount of building contracts per year. Now you'd then work out, okay, so per year we want to generate, let's just say 5 building contracts or 10 building contracts or whatever it is. Then you can reverse engineer all those numbers. So you'd set all those benchmarks. So let's say, for example, you need 10 building contracts a year. So that might mean you need, say, 15 prelims. And maybe out of 15 prelims, that may mean that you need, say, 25 concept plans, which then may mean that you need, out of 25 concept plans, you may need, let's say, 50 sales qualified conversations. And then out of 50 sales qualified conversations, you may need 150 leads, right? I'm just reverse engineering that. Those numbers are just pie in the sky numbers, but you can see what I mean by reverse engineering those numbers, knowing what to track. Once you have those in place, and you get them by knowing your conversion rates. So you need to be tracking your numbers. So you need to know your numbers. So go back in the last 12 months, work out how many leads you generated in total. Out of all those leads, how many turned into sales qualified conversations? Out of those sales qualified conversations, how many of those turned into concept plans, and how many of those concept plans turned into prelims? How many of these prelims turned into building contracts? Then you've kind of got your benchmark there. Now, again, we're trying to solve an inconsistent sales pipeline. Once we know those numbers, those benchmarks, then it's our job to go back and do a bit of a health check on, well, where are we at? Are we hitting these numbers? You may be hitting the quantity, but the conversion might not be there. So you're going, okay, cracky, something's up. There'll be something within your sales pipeline that doesn't add up, but you need to know your numbers. Your numbers, tracking your numbers is key to creating more profit within your construction company. So once you have your numbers and you have your KPIs, you have your sort of set targets ready to go, you know what you need to hit, you know how many leads you need to generate per week or per month. You know how many sales qualified conversations you need to have per week or per month. You know how many concept plans, you know how many prelims, you know how many building contracts you need. Then you need to ensure that you have a strong client acquisition funnel in place. So basically a marketing machine that's working for you that acts as a lead generation source. So you need a marketing system that's constantly pulling in leads and driving those numbers, hitting those numbers. So, you know, obviously we run ads and create video marketing strategies for our clients. There's all sorts of different lead generation sources out there, but you need to have some form of predictability when it comes to client acquisition, and having your own client acquisition system is crucial to the success of any construction company, right? You can't just build your company off of referrals. You need to have a system in place where you can track the numbers, track the data. That's why we like Facebook and Instagram ads and Google ads, because we can see metrics, we can drive and influence numbers and ultimately generate more projects, right? So once you have your client acquisition funnel in place, you know your numbers, you know your path to profit, you know how many leads you need, you have a documented sales process in place. The next thing you do is track your numbers often, all right? Track your numbers regularly. What I mean by this is constantly battle check weekly. Check your numbers. How many leads are we generating? Are we on track? Have we surpassed the mark, right? Tracking our numbers against our benchmarks is where we will see the gaps and the inconsistencies within our sales pipeline, right? There isn't really a magic formula to this. It's kind of like a game of going, we're going to start here. This is where we need to hit. This is our target up here. And we're going to start like over here, right? And today's day one. Now we're going to move towards it. And we will quickly see if we're going to hit the target or if we're not going to hit the target, right? Now, you need to meet regularly with your team or with your marketing partner or with your agency to discuss these numbers, right? Because these numbers have your answers. The numbers have the answers. The answer is in the data. So if you're going off and you're generating all these leads, but you're not generating any clients, it's like, well, there might be a conversion problem. Let's look at the sales process. But then if you're going, you're converting every single client that comes through, there might be a lead generation problem because you're not generating enough leads. So we've got to work out and see based off your metrics, well, what's broken and what's not in place here and where can we improve it, right? Which leads me to the last step in the process. And this leads me to the last part in this process of fixing an inconsistent sales pipeline. So once you're meeting regularly with your team or with your agency to work out what these numbers are, the next part is to make incremental increases, right? So if you're, say, 50% off a mark or 25% off a mark, let's try to increase that by, say, 20% or even 15% or whatever that number is, right? And then focus on working on just specifically that. And once we see the increases and we're going to slowly move that up from 5%, okay, this week we're 5% better, next week we're 10% better, bang, we hit our mark. Okay, cool, let's look at it again. All right, now that's increased by 15, 20%, what can we do here, right? And it's a game of making incremental increases across the sales pipeline. But this is what's key. This is why you need to have that documented sales process in place to then work out what needs to change, right? You got to be able to be anchored somewhere so you can go back to it and fix it if it needs be. But next to that, this is why the client acquisition funnel is so important as well, because if you're trying to increase something by 10, 15%, you need to be able to track those numbers. And that's why a client acquisition machine or like a running ads, and that is so important, is because you have the data, and therefore because you have the data, you can start leveraging and you can start like a maths equation. Let's change that 2 to a 4, let's change that 8 to a 12, and let's see what happens. All of a sudden, bang, different outcome. So we're trying to create levers within our business to then drive results. So if a client came to me and wanted to fix their inconsistent pipeline, that's the process that I would take them through. Now, obviously within a client acquisition framework, there's a whole video series within the different type of client acquisition funnels that you can run. But again, this is the high level overview of what I would do if I had to fix an inconsistent sales pipeline. Guys, let me know what you resonated with. If you have any questions, drop them below. And as always, I'll see you on the next one.